Getting your tyre pressure right before setting out on a ride is really important. Too high a pressure and you risk a blowout. Too low a pressure and you risk getting a pinch flat. So what pressure should you be looking at putting into your tyres? Getting your tyre pressure right depends on two things: the diameter of the tyre and your weight. A few years ago you'd have pumped your tyre up as hard as you could get it, but nowadays we run to much lower pressures because research has shown that it's more efficient because your tyre will roll over bumps rather than moving your frame up and down when it hits them. There's also a tendency to fit wider tyres to bikes, and they can be run at lower pressures. All tyres will have a maximum pressure printed on them, and often they'll have a minimum pressure too. You should never run them above the maximum pressure, but you can often go below the minimum. So let's start with a 70 kilogram-ish rider, riding with clinches and tubes on the usual UK roads. With a 23mm tyre, then you should be looking at around 90 to 100 psi in summer, and around 10 psi less in winter to improve your grip. If you're nearer 60 kilograms, then you can take about 5 psi off those values, whereas you should add 5 psi if you're closer to 80 kilograms. 25mm tyres are now increasingly popular, and you can drop these to around 80 psi in the summer. Quite a lot of bikes will take a 28mm tyre, and this will contain about 50% more air than a 23mm and can be run at around 60 to 70 psi. Go even wider, like a cyclocross tyre, and you can drop them down to 40 or 45 psi. Tubeless tyres are becoming increasingly popular, and because there's no risk of a pinch flat, they can be run at around 10 or 15 psi lower than tubes. And finally, you should use a track pump with a gauge, or a separate pressure gauge like this, to check your tyre pressure before every ride. And don't forget to take the mini pump with you, just in case you get a flat when you're out on your ride.